United States, Ukraine, and Europe have agreed on a NATO-like guarantee for the future security of Ukraine. Over the last few days, Ukraine and its allies have tried to come up with a revised peace proposal that would deter any future attacks by Russia. After 2 days of talks in Berlin, officials told reporters that they had resolved or significantly closed gaps on 90% of their differences. This was based on the 20-point draft agreement that was put forth by the Trump administration to end the nearly 4-year-long war. But they acknowledged that the question of where to draw a new Russia-Ukraine border in the Donbass, where much of the fighting has been happening, is still unresolved. Ukrainian President Zelensky has said it would be impossible for Ukraine to give up territory, mostly in the Donetsk, that Russia has not yet taken on in the battlefield. President Trump has told Zelensky he should basically surrender that territory because he will most likely lose that territory in the coming months if the fighting were to continue.
Я вважаю, що питання території, воно болюче. Бо Росія хоче те, що вона хоче, і можемо не йти далі, бо це довгий діалог. Ми чітко розуміємо, що вони хочуть. Можемо вірити в це, може хтось не вірити в це, але ми чітко знаємо на 100% чого вони хочуть.
Most of the conversation over the past couple of days focused on the security guarantee, which is intended to deter Russia from invading Ukrainian territory again in the future. Trump was willing to submit any final agreement on American commitments to Ukraine, provided Putin was also willing to sign off on the same. It is still not clear whether the security guarantee would become a formal treaty, a treaty like what the United States has with Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and other allies. In those agreements, America is treaty-bound to come to the defense of any of these allies if they're attacked. Trump has said that the United States will not contribute ground troops to Ukraine, but he did offer to patrol the skies and to enforce a no-fly zone in addition to providing Ukraine with intelligence from American satellites and signals. European officials who had been skeptical of Trump's willingness to play a central role in Ukraine's security said that they emerged from the meeting pretty impressed with the American plan. Trump said that they were almost at the finish line and he's hopeful to stitch it up by Christmas. As the draft agreement is amended to address more of Ukraine's concerns, the more difficult part will be to persuade Russian President Vladimir Putin to sign on. Putin's strategy so far has been to encourage the conversation while continuing to pound Ukraine's electrical and heating infrastructure. Almost every single night, there have been missile and drone attacks in the hope of breaking the will of the Ukrainian people over a long, cold, and harsh winter. Zelensky has been pressing since February for ironclad security guarantees that Western allies will come to Ukraine's aid if Russia were to attack it again. Trump has been resisting that for months, but now he seems to have come around. Zelensky and Ukraine have also been very skeptical because previous treaties have openly been flouted by Russia, and yet the West has not come to defend Ukraine. Those guarantees in a 1994 accord called the Budapest Memorandum failed to deter a war that has resulted in more than 1.5 million casualties in the last almost 4 years. In that previous agreement in 1994, the United States, Britain, and Russia had given assurances to protect Ukraine in return for Ukraine giving up its old Soviet nuclear weapons. But the accord was vaguely worded. It was not clear what kind of aggression would spark a response or what the form of that response would be. The options ranged from a strongly worded diplomatic protest to providing arms to sending in troops and air support to counter an invasion. So 30 years later, Russia broke that accord and Ukraine is still paying the price for it.
Ich bin deshalb sehr froh darüber, dass wir in der Europäischen Union nun das russische Staatsvermögen dauerhaft immobilisiert haben, wie wir so schön sagen, bis es zu einem Frieden mit der Ukraine kommt. Wir wollen dieses Geld nutzbar machen, um die Ukraine militärisch für mindestens die kommenden 2 Jahre zu unterstützen, wenn dies denn notwendig sein sollte. Um es hier sehr klar und sehr deutlich zu sagen, wir tun das nicht, um den Krieg zu verlängern. Im Gegenteil, wir tun das, um diesen Krieg so schnell wie möglich zu beenden, meine Damen und Herren. Denn dies sendet an Moskau das klare Signal, dass eine Fortsetzung dieses Krieges für Moskau sinnlos ist. Wir zeigen damit Stärke und nur mit Stärke werden wir es schaffen, diesen sinnlosen Krieg, meine Damen und Herren, zu beenden.
After more than 8 hours of meetings on Sunday and Monday between Zelensky, Steve Witkoff, who's Trump's special envoy, and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, the Ukrainian leader emerged saying that he was heartened by the progress made so far. But he also made it clear that he was not ready to embrace the final document that will have to be signed off by Putin. Zelensky said that before withdrawing troops and allowing parts of Donetsk to be a free trade zone, there must be a clear understanding of what these security guarantees will mean. He also noted that because the United States was refusing to offer Ukraine membership to NATO, he would need those security guarantees to be even stronger than those that are given to NATO members. NATO's Article 5 says an attack on one is an attack on all. In a statement after the meeting, 12 European leaders laid out some of the details of the latest agreement. They said that under the new accord, the West would provide sustained and significant support to Ukraine to sustain a peacetime military of about 800,000 forces. That would be both the largest and the most battle-tested force in Europe. A Europe-led multinational force will have contributions from Europe's biggest powers, France, Britain and Germany, all of whom have committed that they will send a required number of troops. The flurry of diplomatic activity comes after American negotiators presented a 28-point peace plan by Trump last month. Initially, the Ukrainians dismissed it as being too aligned with Russia. European leaders came around and they have supported Ukraine's counter-proposal, which basically would allow Ukraine to hold on to the territory that it currently controls. Ultimately, it boils down to where Putin will agree to settle this war, either on the dialogue table or on the battlefield.
Fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.